and then we'll probably carry on. So, all right. So welcome everyone. It's wonderful to see you. I had 3 people on my list to ask to be on this panel, and all 3 said yes. I couldn't be happier. First of all, there's Peggy Bloom, who is the author of Circular Design and also teaches in design creative technologies at University of Texas at Austin. I use the Circular Design book as one of the textbooks in entrepreneurship and fashion. It's really well written and covers the topic very, very well. Then there's Amy Duveau, Director of Sustainability at Botanical Colors and co-director at Fibershed of Waste Wool Working Group. Fascinating. And she's been to Babson before. She's come to our sustainability conference and spoken. And then Laura Sansone is a professor of textiles at Parsons New School for Design, and also the New York, she's part of you started the New York Textile Group, I think, yeah. And then there's just me, but I'm here to have fun. So I noticed today that we have now topped 8 billion people on the planet. Today's the day. So, and a lot of people are from the fashion industry at the moment are at COP27 in Egypt. And a lot of countries and companies are discussing what can be done to keep the rise in temperature below 1.5 degrees centigrade, and of course, focusing on the environment. And Business of Fashion, and hopefully some of you are reading that online. Business of Fashion came to the conclusion that we're really not doing enough. And what can we do in terms of regenerative economy, moving fashion in that direction? And I've been on a lot of panels, I've been to a lot of panels, and one area that really isn't discussed enough is color. So today we're going to be talking about color and what can be done in terms of the regenerative economy and sustainability. And these 3 leading people in the field are phenomenal in talking about anything about sustainability, but particularly textiles and color. A few years ago, I met the former COO of Nike at the Copenhagen Fashion Summit. His name's Eric Sprunk. And I said, what is the biggest challenge in terms of sustainability or regenerative economy in the supply chain? And he said, everybody's talking about textiles, nobody's talking about color. And color and dyes are, in a sense, standing, it's kind of a supply gap right now, because we're trying to produce sustainable colors, regenerative colors, but it's very difficult to do so and get up to scale. So first question, I know all 3 of you look at this on a daily basis and are deep into this. So what do you think are the biggest challenges in terms of building sustainable dyes? We've just been having a chat offline a little bit about a lot of the technologies that are coming up that allow us to identify what's in textiles or what's in dyes, which will be helpful. But who would like to start off? It's hard for me to choose between you 3 because I have such immense respect for all 3 of you. So
I'll jump in. That's
yeah, there
my
you go.
entire life is color, natural dyes. So I am the communications and sustainability director for Botanical Colors Natural Dyes, and we're the leading natural dye supplier in the country. So we do production dyeing for brands. We sell dyes. I work with farmers in the US trying to source dyes. And what else do? We do consulting. We actually consult with brands. We're working with a couple brands right now, just helping them everything from how will a color turn out to how you actually tell that story so you're not greenwashing. And my background is as a sustainable fashion journalist for over 15 years and writing for lots of people. So when I hear and see greenwashing, I just call it. So it's great with consultants are like terrified a little bit. So one of the biggest challenges I'll say for us, like we tripled our business during the pandemic. We had more brands than ever coming to us, and they came to us for many different reasons. And it's not that we couldn't do thousands of pieces for them. We already do Eileen Fisher's dyeing. We've done work from Madewell, Converse, lots of brands. But the problem is a lot of people want to have yardage dyeing, or they want to dye yarn, and there's just not that infrastructure in the United States for that natural dyeing. And you have a lot of people who are running dye houses who don't want to take on natural dyes because they don't understand them. The other challenges with natural dyes are that raw dye materials do not fit in machines. They'll ruin machines. So there's that whole problem of turning raw dye materials from the United States into extracts that you could put in a machine. There's also challenges with how fashion brands see color, and that it should be consistent, but it's actually way more cool when it's not consistent. Or it could be consistent, but just be ready for the highs and the lows in a piece. And also, brands will come to us thinking we have to go as fast as the traditional fashion calendar. And that's also not going to happen. So there's a lot of education around dyes. It's absolutely can be done. We're absolutely working on it. We're about to move into a bigger space. We'll have bigger machines to accommodate. It's not that we can't get dyes. It's not that we can't use dyes. It's that the brands don't understand the complexity of the dyes. So I forgot who it was that said that, or maybe from Nike. Absolutely, we are not going to be doing hundreds of thousands of pieces for anyone. And that's the biggest problem in the fashion industry right now, is that we're going to keep to the same amount that we've always done, these large runs. And it has to be stopped, and it has to be thought through a lot more consciously for people, and being paid fairly, and as well as the planet that can't handle it anymore, including the amount of water used in the process of natural dyeing.
That's great. I might just jump in here if that's okay with you, Peggy. Just because I want to point to some things that Amy was saying. I run an organization called New York Textile Lab, which is a design and consulting company that works to grow bioregional textiles in New York State. And I'm also a FiberShed affiliate, as Amy is as well. I'm the New York FiberShed affiliate. And, you know, for I think what sticks in my head most strongly in terms of what Amy was just saying was it was this idea of growth and the scale of things, which is in itself is problematic. I mean, as I mentioned, my main mission is about looking at bioregional development, which involves capacities and limitations of our region and what we have available. And you know, natural dyes are a big part of this. And it doesn't really necessarily make sense to expand the growth of natural dyeing to the extent where we're like monoculturing the way we are with our other big ag systems. And to meet the needs of the industry, it's like we would kind of have to do that at some level. So I guess what's really important is you know, I mean, I think there is great potential to use natural dyeing, and it's definitely demonstrated by organizations like Botanical Colors and the work that Amy's doing. But I think we really need to kind of step back a minute and look at that growth logic, and what does scaling mean, and how much should we really be scaling? What is so great about natural dyeing as a method, as a process, is that it really pulls us close to natural systems, because I think that's part of like the rigor of the market in our fashion systems, is that you know, like it sort of pulls us away from natural systems as human beings, and we really need to be more cognizant of our impact on the environment. And I think using natural dyes, you know, using those as a designer brings us to that place. Like, it's just what Amy mentioned about like all the nuances of natural dyes and how they vary, from season to season, really, and based on the conditions that they have to grow in. I mean, Amy's doing research right now in a wastewater treatment plant, and it obviously impacts the nature of the color. So, that in itself is just really incredible, and it's a way to kind of bring us closer to these natural systems which operate in circular models, and also in models that really are about interdependencies. So anything that is going to move us away from that rigor of the crazy 7-season turnover in the fashion and clothing, fashion and textile marketing, to more something that's more aligned with growth cycles, plant ecologies, agrarian systems, is a good thing on any level. But I think really looking at how we scale that is the key.
Peggy,
Well,
yeah.
yes, of course. Well, I think all of this is truth. I mean, we have to look at, I guess I could say that when I started in fashion in 1981 out of FIT, I worked in fashion forecasting, in old school color forecasting. And that was a time way before the internet, as we know. And it was a time when we had time, because we followed a specific calendar. We also didn't have a customer that was, or fashion that was accelerated. As you said, our business model has jumped tremendously. And so we lost out on this almost, I want to say, time to design, time to think, time to pause. Time now is, there's absolutely no time. We've turned design into more merchandising, right? The products come out, and people buy according to just maybe a tweak. If you think about the way Gap looks at colors, and it's the same style of t-shirt or same pattern, and it's just changed, the colors just changed. This is blue replaces green replaces yellow, and we keep going on and on and on. But we're not training. We have to start with a mindset, I believe, and retrain how we look at color from almost a blank slate, because our mindset, as not only as professionals but as consumers, is we have to look for newness, innovation. That's what drives our business. But if we start to think about maybe color and material of that is not even dyed. I mean, going back to real basics and thinking, how do we get the consumer to stop thinking that they need to replace things so quickly due to color, style, and trend? So how do we do that? So, how can we, as, the natural dyeing is one of my favorite things in the world. I think this is going to solve everything. However, we don't have the mindsets. And when I hear, when you mentioned the gentleman from Nike, I think about, I've been hearing that since I wrote the book, and I wrote the book right before the pandemic. And I feel like that's becoming more and more of a, from larger brands, I feel like it's becoming an excuse. Well, we don't have it to scale. We need the technologies. We do this. And so I have been working with a lot of startups at the beginning of the year in Barcelona. I was working with Desigual's plug and play accelerator. And it was really interesting to see all the innovations that are coming out. But as I got to know some of the startups and who have solutions to some of the problems we do have in the industry, a lot of them said they would be, say Eileen Fisher or Nike or someone, big brands would be interested in things like dissolvable threads and all kinds of great stuff. One of the things that they didn't really want to do is make that investment. They didn't want to make that investment because it's more expensive, obviously, to use any materials, colors that are closer to nature. And so until we get someone to lead the way, and I mean, some of these big brands make that investment, take that risk, change maybe a production model that we've had since, the Industrial Revolution. the mindset has to be changed. So it's an educational piece, I see, of the manufacturer, the brands, the professionals need to be retrained in the way we look at color in fashion, because it's not going to be that, replace the fashionable colors, the trends, but maybe we start to think about trend seasonality, and colors that are basic, and where do we pop color in fashion that maybe isn't such an investment, that we're changing entire garments, we're doing all these things, and maybe less emphasis on synthetics, maybe less emphasis on plastics. Can we say goodbye to vibrant colors? There's a lot of things that can happen, but I think I almost feel like, because it's already 2023? It's 2023, that 3 years ago, I heard, innovation, collaboration, technology is the way forward. And we're still, maybe we got sidetracked with the pandemic, but I feel like the bigger brands are the ones that really have to make that investment. And I'm not sure they're ready to give up their old business models, even though they might say that.
So yeah, I mean, I'm hearing a lot from caring about the environmental P&L and, a lot of from different companies about, the environment, sustainability and stuff. Nobody is talking about color and how they can move to a different sensibility about color, more natural colors, or about getting into natural dye business, or at least supporting entrepreneurs. Maybe that's what we should do. Maybe we should form a consortia to go after the big brands and have them fund natural dye wherever it is, in terms of the efforts that all three of you make, or indigenous communities. They have always used natural dyes, or just building a sensibility with designers, and getting the conversation going. Maybe we're starting it here today, right? But what is the, Bill Gates, a lot of people who problem solvers sort of go equals what we want to have happen. What are the things that we could line up to build a greater awareness that natural colors are stunning and beautiful? And how can we get more companies and designers interested in working with those?
If I can just jump in.
Yeah.
I feel like we rely so much on the same things over and over, and the same things keep giving us the same problems over and over. I don't feel like working with large brands is any type of solution, actually. I know like Laura works with some smaller designers, and they make really beautiful climate beneficial sweaters and hats and mittens and all kinds of knitwear, beautiful. And it's not always even naturally dyed. It's the color of the wool. Sally Fox out in California, she uses the color of the cotton, the brown cotton. She's famous for that. There's different plants that can grow colors that you don't even need to dye them. But from my experience working with large brands, when you tell them it's more than double the price. And you have there'll always be some really great 2 people on the sustainability team. They are so into it. And they go back to the rest of the team, and they go to the other departments and say, hey, I want to do this. It's happened with me with my own fiber shed too, here in Southeastern Mass. They're like, I'll just say a large footwear and apparel brand. They could not get the people to get behind them because it was too much work. They're too big. There are too many systems to be changed. And so it's near impossible. And when they do it, it's not meaningful at all. And it is a greenwashing piece. It's not there. But I will say that, again, like 15 years ago, when we were talking about this, band of us that are still talking about it, there were so many people that were calling. I got called like the country girl of fashion. I'd be, on the risers of New York Fashion Week taking pictures, but I was the country girl of fashion because I believed that soil and farming was going to change the way things were. And my prediction was true.
Yep.
Those, so smaller brands, mid-sized brands that really want to make this into what they do are the ones who are going to do it really well and accept that the prices are as they are. It is the true cost of doing good business. And it's up to them to then tell that story that gets people engaged, because we are living on one planet and we have to think about systems that are working together, as we all have seen just with the pandemic. I mean, the pandemic started in one place, but guess what? We all got shut down on that. And that's what's going to happen with water in the future. That's what's going to, I mean, water, it's not a new sentence here. Water is the new oil, but it's true. Water is that. So if these smaller brands and mid-sized brands are so smart, they're doing it now, they're getting it, they're making it a part of their DNA, and they're going to be blowing past all these larger brands who won't be able to keep up on all the restrictions that they will have environmentally. So I just don't think it's really time for us to smash apart everything we know and start at the beginning and build our own foundation, and not let what the past fashion industry has told us was correct. It is not that anymore. It's so old fashioned to me when people start talking. I mean, but this just with color kind of trend forecasting, Peggy, like we just did the first ever natural dye collection for the Color Association of America. We did a whole natural dye, like I've got all the swatches in my office. And then we also just did an entire, we did a whole natural dye collection for cotton ink. We also did a whole natural dye collection for Material Connection. So we've put these really exciting catalogs together of natural color, what you can do. And when I do show people, and I do show a fashion brand, these are the colors, they're like, are you kidding me? Like, no, these are really the colors you can get. You can get all kinds of bright colors, as well as really gorgeous muted colors, but it's an excuse because it's really expensive to do this, upfront expensive.
I agree with that, Amy, because I think a lot of people I talk to, they say the same thing about the innovations, that the brands are turned off by the price. Why should I do this when I can get away with that? And so I think you make a good point about that a lot of the things that are going to move this forward in our industry are going to be the startups, the little groups, and I felt so much hope after I worked with so many of these entrepreneurs, because I felt like, everybody is trying to make a difference. So that's why when I hear like a bigger brand, that's what turned me off about even going to Copenhagen, because I was really getting tired of listening, when they put up H&M and all these brands just telling us, well, we're going to work off this business model, but we're also going to, we're going to have a little selection of, as if this is nothing that's, not a big deal, limited edition or something, instead of really making this an investment in time and money and everything. So I think the main thing for me is that another piece to this, I guess, as an educator is, and I see this I see this in a lot in the university level, because I see some of the textile and apparel programs, the fashion merchandising programs, and I see the same thing being taught. And they're not moving the dial. We're not, there's certain institutions that are, but we have so much fashion education out there that I feel like I don't want to say ruin it, but we've really broadened it onto what fashion is and what fashion's about, and the the educational piece. So I guess and I'll just say this, the last thing, because I come from the technology piece with these students and that I'm teaching, is that there is this digital and physical world. And so they are part of both. They look at color through a lens that, is on a game or on their screens, and they want to see that color their clothing. So how do we, kind of integrate the physical and the digital colors? I saw some color trend forecasting things that were coming up, like, a combination of nature and tech, that usual thing, cyber lime, and it's really interesting because I took the students to a designer, Miranda Bennett, and she does natural dyeing, and they were floored. They never saw that before. And so when I talk about that mindset and that education, I think it's important. Sorry.
I mean, this is music to my ears, because I'm starting to hear that it's all up to the entrepreneurs, in a sense, to begin experimenting and to do something that the mainstream's not doing. It's fine, let's go into niche areas. Let's develop the sense. I always like natural colors because they're more restful to the eye, and I don't know if it has a natural depth, whereas a lot of the fabricated colors are sort of flat and jarring, in a sense, to the eye. But so maybe it's up to the entrepreneurs to build the business case, so to speak, or to build the discoveries, and to build the experiments, and to really figure out what could be new in the regenerative product and experience of fashion. That would be a whole new experience.
I think I think we're all in agreement that, that the smaller brands, the younger entrepreneurs of the world, or, the independent designers are going to really be more resilient in many ways, to be able to shift and shift their supply chains. I mean, I think that because, when you're looking at the large brands, they really operate on efficiencies of scale, and that's what keeps the price point low, right? And, we're all talking about like a higher price point. And, when you lose efficiencies of scale, the price is going to go up. And that's the reality of it. But like for me, the work that I do around bioregional textile and clothing development is I work cooperatively with other designers. So we're really looking at systems level change. So, how do we meet efficiencies as independent people? Because I think that's a big challenge, right? Because what happens is the larger brands are the big fish in the pond, and they end up swallowing up, the smaller fish, or like, the business is sort of funneled to larger entities that have the means to, do the work. So that's how capitalism grows, so it's sort of like looking at that and thinking about how we're working within that, how we can work in a more cooperative way, and build our supply chains in a different way, like change the shape of them essentially into networks, cooperative networks, which is working pretty well. I mean, I am doing that with a number of other designers, and we're actually, Amy mentioned, we're using really the color of the animals to create the color of the garments, right? So we're buying fiber together, and we're blending fiber, and we're using the animal colors to create color for us, which is really, it's been very interesting. When you're working in smaller networks, like we happen to be cobbling together fiber from multiple farms, in an effort to support smaller stakeholders in the process of this growth model. So we're working with smaller farms, so there's less efficiencies there. We're cobbling together many, many different types of fiber. Every year, the colors shift because the animals shift and the farms that have available fiber shift. So, we're actually blending alpaca, which we have a lot of it in our region, with white wool to generate like these heathered colors. So what we've managed to communicate that to our customers, and I have some designers in my purchasing collaborative who actually sell wholesale. And it's been really incredible how they've been able to talk to their buyers, their stores about, all right, we're gonna have brown again next year in this cardigan style, but it's going to be a different color, a different shade, it's gonna be slightly different brown. And they've really been successful at marketing these fibers, which also have another deep value, embedded value of climate beneficial in them. So they're actually also sinking carbon into the soil, like as they're being cultivated. So I think, like, back to this idea of resiliency and how smaller entities are able to pivot easier, especially if we're working together.
Yeah.
So now might be a good time to pause and see if there's any questions from the audience. Feel free to put it in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and turn your camera on and ask your question.
We have a couple of designers I know, and a couple of, there's Alexander Malashenko is, he and his wife have a wonderful new company that they're launching. And Catherine Tanaja, I'm going to wreck your name. I'm sorry, Catherine. She is an honor student focusing on color and fashion and business models. So do you have any questions? Or we can keep going. That's easy.
I have a question, if you don't mind. So and I'm very, very new to this topic, so forgive my ignorance, but you mentioned the voice of the customer a little bit, and I'm wondering, is that the secret sauce getting to seeing the corporate mindset shift? Because I'm understanding that's very expensive to make a change, and there's a huge mindset and culture that's going to have to change for these major companies. Is it the individual consumer who's passionate about sustainability? Is that what it's going to take? Because I'm balancing what you're sharing, but then thinking about all of the demand that I see for sustainability, but not so much around color, more around waste, I think, in the industry. So I'm just curious, like your perspective on like what will it take ultimately?
So Alexandra, so your main thing is waste. Like that's for you when you're thinking about, yeah. So I mean, so if I were you and I'm shopping and I'm thinking about color and how I want to shop, I would definitely be thinking about who are the designers or who are the brands, which are the brands that are tackling waste in some way. And that would be the thing that would be the most important to me. I mean, you can definitely, at this point with the internet, you can start shopping your values. I mean, on the botanical colors, we just put a whole holiday market together based on, you can shop your ethical or environmental values. And so if you want to shop US made, or you want to shop to support indigenous culture kind of worldwide, you can do that. And that's something I want to start doing with our site. And this is my first stab at it. Like, and it's been interesting to see that people are actually supporting that. But I think it's so, I remember one time I was on a panel in New York, and this person was this young business owner said, I'm going to start an e-commerce business and I'm going to do drop ship and it's going to be great. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, you're going to do consignment, but you're going to do consignment with designers who don't care about what they're giving you. And like, tell me what's so different about what you're talking about doing. And they didn't actually know what it was. And I said, what were you doing before you were doing this? And he said, I was really into wind energy. I was like, I would design an entire business around wind energy, like wind produced clothing. It has to be very, very specific about what you're doing so that people like you who care about waste, you can start shopping your values there. But if brands just want to keep talking about all the different things that they are going to do, like H&M or like a lot of these kind of fast fashion brands, it's never going to work. That is just greenwashing. So you know that you as an individual, you as a human being, you know that they won't be able to do that. They can't. So I would just pick those smaller designers who are doing the things that you like and start shopping them.
I also wanted to add to that. I agree. I think with the aspect of waste, it's really important to think about that, that circular model, a circular economy, driving products through a closed loop system. And one of the things that we could talk about with color is even setting up color ranges that would withstand a recycling or various technologies going through that cycle. So once we have the waste, what's happening to the colors after wear, after going through certain, all these loops? And even what happens to it if, we do get it into the loop and then it goes around again? How is that color change? Yeah. So like we get all this clothing, we renew it, let's just say, and we put it back in, we wear it again, we keep looping it around, but what's happening to the colors as we give it more wear, as we give it redesigning, as we renew it, as we put it through these various recycling technologies or new innovations? And so, how is that shifting in some ways?
Yeah, I also think, Peggy, I don't want to be talking too much, but you just made me think, we're working with this one brand of, undergarments. And so there's a pH problem with natural dyes sometimes, and it'll happen where you're sweating, I'll just say. And so the color will dramatically change. But this brand had said, we've got people returning underwear because they're like, oh my God. And I said, well, why don't we work together on a kit? You could send it to them because the fabric's already mordanted. They could actually bundle dye it up, steam it, and evolve their clothing. And that's the thing with natural dyes. You get your fabric ready, you mordant your fabric, it's ready, it'll stay that way for years. You can remordant it 5 years from now, but you can always, like this sweater, it was a white vintage, beautiful, wool sweater from Ireland. And I ended up, last year I dyed it with Himalayan rhubarb, and this year I did with marigolds because it was fading out a little bit. But you can evolve your clothing and you can be a designer yourself. It's taking the reins of color and that idea of reuse and really doing exciting things with it. That's the real future too.
That's really great, Amy. That's like a great point to bring up around natural dyeing. And I teach also at Parsons School of Design, and I teach natural dyeing in my curriculum. It's a big part of my curriculum. And we look at natural dyeing relative to circularity all the time, and how to use natural dyeing to breathe new life into old clothing, just what you're saying, Amy, because I think there's great potential for that in the natural dyeing world, to sort of give agency to like consumers, so that they can hang on to their clothing for longer and revive it. So I love that idea. And just pointing to something that Peggy said, you illustrated this circle of like color changing. And I think that's really important too, to look at like how our fibers recycle. Like if we're gonna start creating recycled yarns, which we should be doing that. I mean, like there's no, if we can do that if we make the clothing properly from the beginning, if we're not putting like elasticine in our denim and all that, but I love that idea of the yarn taking on a new quality just because it's recycled, because it's actually a heathered blend of things or whatever, it's impacting the overall nature and color of the end of the recycled product. So
I love that too. I think that's really an exciting bit. That's what we could get excited about, right? And I think that's an important piece to get people excited about it. It doesn't have to be, I guess, doom and gloom, but what you just said was just, wow, we could, and it's changing that mindset. It doesn't have to be so strict,
Yeah, I feel like color is one of the most interesting things, again, from writing about all the horrible gloom and doom things for so long. Nobody wanted, I know people listened, I know they did, but the minute, when I started working in natural dyes 10 years ago, it was like, oh my God, you can talk about this as if it were math or science or entrepreneurship or farming. You can talk about evolving things. You can talk about the medicinal value. You can talk about activism, racism. You can talk about so many things through color. And so, that's what we do. Like we have a weekly show. We've been 108 episodes in now. We started during the pandemic. Feedback Friday, we have one this week, but we look at it from the viewpoint of, an artists and scholars and math, wherever you're coming from, there's this entry point and you can get really excited about it. You can be empowered to make your own colors and morph your own or evolve your own color. But, yesterday I was on a call with the Narayan Kandekar, who runs the Harvard Forbes Pigment Collection, which is the largest pigment collection in the world. It's in Boston. And Porfirio Gutierrez, who's the Zapotec weaver and dyer, and they were former presenters on our show, and they decided that Porfirio said he really wanted to pick who he wanted to have a discussion with, like come back on. So he picked Narayan. So we met yesterday and we had a conversation, and I wish I'd recorded it. It was so good. I think it changed my life yesterday. But it was, like thinking about painting and color and art and indigenous practices and uncovering the history of where color came from. And as a young, or, as a Zapotec artist, being able to translate color and pattern from indigenous colors and indigenous patterns to make his own, so that it wasn't that original. So it's so interesting, but there's a million conversations you can have around this. And the technology is exciting too. I mean, there's definitely people looking at how do you recycle water and pull color out of that water to reuse that to make new dye. There's so many businesses just waiting to be had around color that have not been created yet. So that's so exciting.
Could you put that, the link to the program in the chat
Oh, sure.
that we could all, sounds phenomenal. It just sounds like there are so many entrepreneurial opportunities in color. It's very exciting. And the big brands, you're right, they're not going to do it. And so it's an absolutely wonderful entryway for, I'm thinking, Peggy, educational experiences that we could build, and Laura, all of us, we could definitely collaborate in terms of building some educational experiences, mutual, sharing it with different student groups too, to sort of go there. That would, and the beauty of that would be we could get some funding from some of the brands. That would be justice. Anyway.
So I think we have some more questions. Umar, I believe you were in there first. If you want to ask your question.
Hi, yes. It is nice to have you all at this event. I belong to a textile background. We are one of the largest vertically integrated factories in Pakistan, from spinning to finished products. So my question is that there has been development in new farming techniques like color-grown cotton. How do you think this will impact the dyeing industry, as it will serve as an alternative to dyeing methods? As a manufacturer, my concern would be either to invest in a sustainable dyeing technology or the procurement of color-grown fibers.
I think the idea with
A little bit of both. You go, Laura.
Oh, sorry. The idea with the color grown cotton is that, you don't need to dye it, right? I mean, it's really an interesting material because it evolves when you wash it, actually. Like it does change, like based on the pH of your, of the soap that you're using in your washing machine. But the color's already there, which is really interesting, especially for a plant-based material. Amy, did you?
Sorry, I was looking for Sally Fox's website, trying to get Vreesis up there. So what's also interesting when you're using a color like a brown cotton or some type of a fiber that already has a beautiful color that's in it, when you do natural dyeing, it's this gorgeous base layer that you can then build off of. So if it's a brown cotton and you lay a madder root on top, madder root red, it has such depth to it. And people ask about, wash fast or light fast. I mean, when you're building color on top of color, you get color to last even longer, which is really exciting. What was the other part of your question? It was about kind of different colored fibers, but what was the second part of it?
Like I was asking, we should invest in sustainable dyeing technology, or like the procurement of this color-grown fibers.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely, I know Sally Fox is trying to, I think she's going to be turning her farm in California into a research farm because
Okay.
everybody wants to understand better how she does grow that cotton, and she does consulting for so many people. So I think the people have been doing it for a long time.
And what should be the priority? Because if we can eliminate the use of dyeing at all if we invest in color grown fibers, so dyeing would be completely useless, right?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think you'd definitely have a lot of really great neutral colors, but there's so many beautiful plants that you could add to really have a nice range of colors. I think natural dyes, they've been around since time began. We were doing, cave paintings, just some of the, go to any museum and you look at the blues and the reds and how those colors were put on those. It's been around forever. It's how we, back in the day with cochineal and indigo and logwood, those were these kind of royal colors of the wealthy. That was how people said, I have a lot of money, I have a lot of power. And I do think that color is necessary in the fashion industry because it really tells people who we are too as individuals and how we put colors together. It does define us. I dare any of you here to say you didn't think about what you were putting on today, maybe, thinking about coming on this to talk about color or lack of color. You thought about it, you had to have thought about it. But we do think about that, how we put ourselves together every day, whether you care or not. You really do care.
I think we move on to Alexander for your next question.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for this interesting discussion. We have a business to produce women clothes. My wife is a fashion designer, and we have been working for several years in the Russian market. And in terms of fabrics, we use only natural fabrics, and we create images and print them on these fabrics on factories. But now we aim to enter the US market with our brand, and we are reinventing our product and our my manufacturing process, and we can make more accent on sustainability. And I'm interested in suppliers and textile manufacturers who produces such kind of fabrics that you are talking about. Maybe you can recommend someone with whom we can collaborate.
I will definitely, I'm gonna get this link up for you in a second. I'm gonna dig it out with Sally Fox, but there's other people, like
Sally Fox's, I did put it up.
oh, thank you, Laura.
Yeah.
Thanks. So Laura and I both run fiber sheds. We're part of the fiber shed organization. So there's 58 fiber sheds worldwide, and she has the New York, and I have basically Southeastern Massachusetts and Rhode Island. That's mine. But there's the Acadiana fiber shed down in Louisiana, and they're also growing brown cotton, and they're getting that ready working with their farmers so they can get it all ginned and milled and processed down in Louisiana as well. There's definitely people that are trying to do that in the United States. Not tons of people. What about like Houston Textile, Laura? I mean, are they?
Houston, yeah, they're through Fiber Shed, you can get the climate beneficial fiber pool. Like you can get textiles through. I'll share that link for you, Alexander.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can get textiles through that channel. Which is part of, I think, no, Houston's different. They're also coming out of the Fiber Shed on the West Coast, the climate beneficial textiles, which are wool. These are all fine wool textiles, really. The climate beneficial fiber pool is also now blending cotton that's regeneratively grown cotton that's blended with wool.
Yeah, thank you. And an additional question. So our main target customers are mature women, and what do you think this, if we target this aspect of sustainability, will it be attractive for this category of people? So we know that it will be more costly probably than use something more traditional. Will this category of people in the US be willing to pay more for the sustainable fabrics?
I think that's the big question, right? Because we don't really have a big, broad market of sustainable goods that we offer to the consumers. We have, I think we have pockets. And I mean, I think, that's just a tough question for me to answer. I don't know, maybe Laura and Amy could do some better, give you a better answer, but I think this is a gamble. You can't just make a sustainable product and think it's going to sell. It has to also have some elements of design and style and color and be exciting. And I think for sustainability to work on a broader scale, it has to also have an educational component. They have to know why they're buying it, why it makes a difference, so you have to have that narrative or the story behind, your product. So whether that's telling you, where you source these wonderful, fabrics that you're using, it all has to have that value proposition. It all has to have added value, whether you're dealing with waste or botanical colors or anything. You have to sell that to the consumers so that that value proposition is why they buy it.
That's great, Peggy. That's so terrific. And it's so true. And I call it deep value flows. That's what I call it. Because, it's really beyond the monetary value. It has to do with all these underlying, deep values systems that are involved in the production of it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's why somebody would purchase a sustainable good at any price, whether it's fashion or anything, is because they have that deep, I love that deep value.
But
I'm going to use that.
It's a wonderful differentiator, I think. It's an incredible differentiator. I think it would appeal to your market quite a lot because it's a differentiator. It speaks to values. It speaks to people who want to invest over time in something that's going to grow and be healthy for the environment. So yeah, I think if you had part of your line or the whole line or part of the line, experiment with it and see who you draw. I think it's a wonderful theme for that market.
Thank you.
Peggy, you just brought up, you had brought up Miranda Bennett before. What a great example, Alexander, for this company called Miranda Bennett. You should check them out. And so Miranda Bennett, why do so many people love Miranda Bennett? I mean, it's a rectangle dress that they make, but this rectangle dress that they make comes in so many different fabrics and so many different colors. And they make dresses for women who are nursing, and they make dresses that will fit plus size women. Their dresses fit so many different types of women. And those women are so appreciative of that. Now, the second part of that story is that they're making it all. And I think it's in Austin, actually, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah. She's in my book. Yeah,
so
she's a friend
we're
of
actually
mine.
doing we're dying for them for spring 23. It's some really beautiful collection. So get ready for that. But they've created this whole world around what they do and people love it. It's like a group, it's a club. They want to be part of it. And goodness.
Yes, and she's got the credibility and design.
Yeah, they want to be part of it.
She graduated Parsons, where Laura is.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she's a Parsons graduate. And so she spent years in New York before she came back home. And she's out there picking the marigolds in the fields. And, really, that's exactly what she's doing. And the story behind it is what people around here love. They love that it's local. They love that, they can go in her shop. And I mean, it is really, that's the kind of, business model I like to use to students too, because it shows that growth is not always the key to a successful business. And she's really not opened any, she has one store, one studio, and that's it. She's done. She wants to be here in Austin.
Yeah.
So we're getting close to time and we have 2 more questions that we'd like to have asked. Catherine, would you like to go ahead with your question?
Yes, so I'm actually working on an honors thesis right now with Professor Daniels surrounding color. And so I've gained so many great insights, especially since I'm starting my research into sustainability specifically. But something we've talked about these past few months as we're doing our research is that the role of the consumer is so important, especially this day and age. So I was wondering, like, specifically, do you think, and I guess how to, color trends today are a reflection of changing consumer trends and purchase preferences post-pandemic, especially in regards to sustainability?
Mm. Well, I mean, I forgot, we just worked with Pantone on oh my God, what is the color of 2023? It's like this tea color maybe or something. I forgot. We just did an event with this. Anyways, I mean, a lot of times okay, so we're using Pantone still to tell us what colors we should be wearing. And we're letting fashion forecasters and color forecasters tell us what we should be wearing, when it should really be up to the designer who's deciding what we should be wearing. I mean, I don't know that Miranda Bennett does that. Miranda Bennett's just sort of like, this is these gorgeous colors, and the silk takes this madder root color in so deep, and it's kind of working with the colors that work with the fibers. But I think I don't know. I mean, I feel like it's really old fashioned, this idea of thinking about colors for each season, because if we're thinking about forecasts for each season, then what we're talking about is disposable clothing still, because we're talking about clothing that I won't want to wear in spring 24 because it's not going to be cool anymore. But well, it could be that, and I could actually mordant that, and I could evolve it into another color that's similar. But the good things with natural dyes is that you just sort of make up your own rules with it. And that's the beauty of being a designer right now, and I think that's the freedom a designer should feel right now, is that you can absolutely create your own palettes based on your favorite vacation, a childhood memory, whatever it is. Like, build your color around that, and then tell that really good story.
Or build your color around your bioregion, which I think
Or
is
your bioregion, Laura Sansone.
further, yes, we're designers, but we're also problem solvers, right? And we should be responding to, our workable landscape and the environment around us and what it has to offer. So, we could take what's available and make it beautiful, right? That's the idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I think also with the consumer is that, we have to teach them that it's okay that when you buy something, you can wear it over and over and keep it for a long time. So when you invest in something, there's got to be some, emotional connection, some functional durability in this product that makes you want to keep this in your closet, not just, following a color blindly because, I know Kim Kardashian is wearing it, or, it's on the internet or something. So, once again, it's going back to re-educating. And are people open-minded to that? And how do you re-educate? A lot of times, the students don't want to hear a lecture, you're pointing, and that's the consumer too. They want to feel part of the community. They want to feel like part of the change. They want to feel part of a little ecosystem, which I think was Amy was saying about Miranda. She's a magnet for this, because it's not old-fashioned stuff. It's not granny, natural dyes has moved on from that. And I don't think people have really moved on from that. I think a lot of people are just learning about it, and when they find it, they're, oh my goodness, this is wonderful. And so I think that's really important.
So I have 2 questions in the chat. One is, which industry is the most harmful or harmless in terms of sustainability for the environment linked to the color process? Is luxury or fast fashion, or are they pretty much equal?
Oh boy, rabbit hole central here.
Yeah.
I mean, they're probably being all made at the same factory.
Yeah.
They just have different labels on them. But there's so many parts of of the fashion industry that's so damaging, and ethically as well as environmentally. I'm currently focusing on the water part of it right now because that's what my professional career has come to. So I'm, working on the Air Force Base here, like with wastewater from the jail and the base, and growing plants with technology. So it's very exciting to see. But if we are damaging our water sources as much as we are damaging our water sources in the fashion industry, as well as worldwide, doing many things with every time we flush our toilet. But if we can think of ways that we can build exciting technologies, I think around water, that would be one way we could just start easing up the pain that the fashion industry has put on the planet and on people, from their drinking water to, I'll just say mostly like for their drinking water. For all of us, we've got so many problems with water. So water, fashion industry for me are number one, and luxury as well as fast fashion are equally damaging it.
Yeah, I have to say, I also agree with you about the water, but I also showed the students the River Blue, that documentary from 2017. Many of them didn't even realize this is happening. And so it's really, once I keep saying this, but it's really getting people to see it, because I feel like there's a lot of people who we talk. A lot of people talk about it, but when it was better than me doing a lecture on chemical processing and all this, stuff that's terrible. I just showed them the documentary, and then we had an amazing discussion, and many of them, were influenced by that. So I agree, the water is definitely a urgent. We also talked about the beaches in Ghana, and so that's a problem coming. We don't know if those clothes on the beaches are luxury or fast fashion, and it doesn't matter, they're there. And so I feel like it's just it's equally both harmful to the environment. When it's really based on what we've been talking about, that production model, that accelerated growth of we have more clothing than anybody needs in the world. We come down to it. What is going on? What happened? And sometimes it's just, I was at a meeting once, and somebody said, can't we just press pause just for a little bit? Just somebody put the pause button on and just press pause. And so, I don't know. It's
an addiction at this point, so it's hard to press pause when you're addicted to something. I mean, I actually gave up buying clothing, jewelry, and shoes for 1 year, and I did this thing called the Taylor Project. This was years ago, and I wanted to see, like, why do I want something?
Yeah.
And even me, who knows a lot about this stuff, I was like, well, nobody really wants to have those shoes or that sweater. Like
rationalization.
I'll just do that, but I didn't buy anything for 1 year. And just the psychology behind the want and the desire behind why we want things, and the moments, if you pay attention, of course, the psychology behind what are those key moments that we want things. We're sad, we're lonely, we need something, we're missing something in our lives, and we think, oh, if I just buy a cool new pair of shoes, it's gonna fix that. But it doesn't. And that's the other part. I think that there's a real opportunity for the fashion industry to really offer experiences, and really build that into who you are as a designer or a brand. It's like, from inviting people to a farm to, natural dyeing and foraging for color on that farm, playing music and eating food on that farm. Let's create these different experiences so that people can not be, it's not such a huge, like you had said, gloom and doom. It's not that. It's an actual experience that I have, and I'm going to equate that experience with something very, very positive. And from that positive experience, I might think differently about, if somebody says you want to go to the mall, or you want to go to that store, we should shop, you got to check out the store online, or it'll give us pause. Maybe that's the pause button.
Yeah, or I always think, oh God, am I greenwashing myself? You know, I mean, we talk about this all the time, right? Our brands, you know, bring more, but am I doing this to myself? Am I saying, oh, well, it's because I need, or, yeah. So I think there's a lot of internal
Mhm.
reflection. And I think it's good to, I have students sometimes do purchasing journals just for a month, and
Oh, that's
they're
cool.
floored. Yeah, they're floored because they can't even believe that they spent that kind of money on junk and clothes and all sorts of stuff. So we talk about why you need them. Yeah, that's a really important piece, Amy. Thank you.
So we're past time. Caroline, you want to wrap up?
Yeah, I see Eric's questions. If we were to base color options based on bioregions, would efficiencies of supply chains compete with efficiencies of scale that larger companies focus on? I think the answer is probably yes, but you know, how do we get them to do that? And I think part of that answer is we build the business story about how to do that. I think part of this is also communication in terms of, you know, talking about it, writing about it, telling people about it, having people experience natural colors, and I definitely want to learn how to dye a sweater marigold, because that color is unbelievably good. But so Eric, I hope we'll save your question for another panel. And if you want to put your email in the chat, you know, perhaps one of the panelists will answer you. But I think it's a wonderful question, and worth looking into. So with that, thank you so much. Oh my gosh, I had so much fun. Amy Dufault, Peggy Bloom, and Laura Sansone, you're wonderful. And we'll have you back to Babson many, many, many times. Let's create some educational experiences for entrepreneurs about business models and
Oh yeah, I'm coming for you, Caroline.
Absolutely.
I'm coming for you.
That's great.
Do it. All right.
Thank you.
We'll play again. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
It's
Lovely.